Hartmut has been CEO of TNS Infratest Holding for many years, since 2004, and is now head of the Service Center of German Market and Social Research. Hartmut, can we pin Hartmut, Philipp?
Yes, I can do that.
So everyone sees him. Welcome,
Hello.
Hartmut Scheffler. Yeah, you're an outstanding market researcher, and we are very happy to have you here today talking about the shift in market research. Together with Philipp. Philipp is COO and partner at I-Square, and he has been with I-Square since the beginning, and together with Michael and Andreas Törkel, you are a psychologist and specialized in cognitive information processing and implicit research methodologies. So I think you are the best interview partners for today. So yeah, we are excited to hear our interview.
Thank you very much, Karina. Yeah, it's of course my pleasure to have the chance to interview Mr. Scheffler. So I'm going to be more official and try to call you by your last name. And of course, also would like the chance to introduce you, since we owe you a lot as I-Square as a company, since you have also been with us since the very beginning as a shareholder, and you have been visiting I-Square at least once a year. And so thank you again for that. And to maybe complete the introduction from Karina is also that the whole field of market research owes you a lot, since, I mean, basically when we look back 40 years, right? You have been a managing director, CMO at Mnet, Infratest, TNS, or cant then in the last 10, 12 years. No, even I'm not sure when the name of cant changed. Maybe you can remember better. But there's a very long list. ADM, we have the BVM Isomar, very active working groups, the Scientific Society in Münster, the whole marketing association, of course, where you're a board member, and yes, the close collaboration with I-Square and Bonsai, one of our partners from the very beginning, and of course now also the new start for you that you're consulting in brand management and market research on both sides. So you're actually doing that right now. So we're glad that you found the time for us today, and maybe we can also touch on that in the discussion later on. We'll kind of speak for 30 minutes, and please, everyone is also welcome to gather the questions for us, or rather for Mr. Scheffler. And what we'll speak about a little bit today is, first of all, the industry of market research, since you have such a wonderful perspective on it, that we definitely wanted to understand your perspective of the field, the changes, the opportunities, and maybe also let's call it the risks or the challenges. And we also want to touch on the communication and perception topic, how communication changed, and maybe also the perception of us human agents. And yes, first of all, let's start with the industry. Or did I forget something, Mr. Scheffler, for the introduction? Do you want to correct anything?
No correction, and it's a lot of things. So I'm feeling quite old having that in mind. It's a history, and our discussion today, I think, should look forward and not back. And let's try to do it for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you for setting the focus there. And so basically, when we start maybe to look at the industry of market research, right? So Michael and also Karina have done a great job in the introduction, the digital revolution, and also its influences on our field of research. We have all been speaking about it a lot and heard about market research 2.0 or 3.0 or even 4.0. And like from your perspective, what is happening in our industry at the moment, or maybe how is it changing, or has it changed in the recent times?
Yeah. Once again, thanks for your friendly words. I think what we have to avoid is to have a black and white look. And when I give my impression what's happening in the industry at the moment, I got some reactions in the past. I'm in between. You are defining black and white, but you have to make some points. But please it's not that black and white. We are in the strongest transformation ever. I think that's clear, driven by digitalization. And one point is there is a movement, no doubt, there is a movement out of the more or less traditional primary research-based full service area. A lot of institutes offering what they are calling or called full service. A movement out of that into a polarization into two areas, not completely black-white with all combinations between, but we have it. One is let's call it a data economy. That are companies, startups and old companies transforming into this data economy, which means do-it-yourself, offers-based, platform-based, big data-based. They are acting with a lot of data and if possible, with automation and artificial intelligence and all of that. And the other one is, let's call it a little bit arrogant, the understanding economy. That is concentrating on customized activities, not to say research, quite often on qualitative, on answering the why question. And between this, we have all combinations. To give you two examples of companies going into the data economy, that was a GfK some years ago, and that it's cant these days, not to make it too abstract. And the last, what I would like to mention is a development into growing granularity based upon a lot of small enterprises, small startups. They are concentrated on one question, one aspect, one answer, or a lot of answers for one kind of question. Granularity is beating a little bit at the moment, from my understanding, and that is the risk for the whole industry, is beating holistic views, whereas brands and companies need more than ever holistic views. Maybe we come to it a little bit more in detail later on. So that's it, what I see.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very, very interesting to see these say two sides or two dimension, right? Like you said, the data economy on the one hand and the understanding economy. And it's quite a challenge also when we take the perspective from our clients who are looking for research solutions partners and to find the right answers. It means when you say there's quite a granularity, so many different offerings, that it's also very complicated to bring all the data or all the sources together, I understand. And is that a digitalization, like something that comes with digitalization, you would say? And does it also touch basically the method side then? Is that something that you see, that there's more and more methods, or do you say like, no, the methods haven't changed that much actually?
No, the digitization or digitalization is the reason for all of that, of course. And because of a lot of changes, this aspect I mentioned is speed up. Mm-hmm. Because more and more questions are quite granular in UX, in a special kind of communication, in a special kind of e-commerce. So you have this one special question, and the risk is to forget and to oversee that all the answers are coming and belonging together to understand a brand, to understand the success of a brand, of a company, and so on. Yes, but the reason indeed is that of digitalization, because it has an effect, or it has and will have further on an effect in nearly in all areas. Of course, in the topics on client side, on company side, mm-hmm. Not on the basic topics, there is still understanding distribution, but a new topic is e-commerce. It's still the topic to understand communication, but there are hundreds of new topics around social media and. So let's call it an inflation of subtopics. And okay. Topics are asking for solutions are asking for offers, and that makes quite often granularity, which is at the first moment a good thing to answer these questions. But if you are not having in mind the whole picture, then it's a risk. Then of course we have hundreds, I would say even hundreds, at least dozens of new methods because of digitalization. Not to sum it up, it would need an hour or so. We have a lot of new data sources you can use, but in the meantime, I would say everyone who is active in that area has to use it, from location data via transformation data to whatever it is. And again, we have startups specialized in using some of these data and in analyzing some of these data. So at first, a good idea, an important idea, often an important solution, but still granular.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
And last but not least, give me a second, what we have to have, and that is a demand. And again, it's a risk. We all who are active in that field, as active with a brand, active as suppliers, whatever it is, we have to learn, we have to widen our knowledge, we have to understand what's happening in practice, on client side, on consumer side, as well as in our branch. And this new knowledge is a continuously and growing demand. Learn, train, and what it means.
I was going to ask what does it mean basically for us and our industry, but also what does it mean like from the critical side? Basically, when you say yes, there is the granularity and there is more data and more measurement. So does it mean like the measurement of behavioral data is kind of growing stronger than the more traditional, let's say, the understanding or attitude measurement side? Or are they growing equally?
That fact, more and more often, I'm aware of people thinking, saying, presenting the idea that if you have behavioral data, if you can answer the what and when, and of course the who, what and when, and some other more, you must not understand the reason why. You must not understand the attitudes behind. It's enough to know with a lot of A/B testing and so on, what happens when. And that is a risk for our industry, because this answer can be given, of course, by a lot of other industries, other offers. For my understanding, the A and O of leading a brand is understanding why things happen. But it's a risk for our branch. It's a risk that this why question, I'm sure it will not disappear, but will lose relevance. What is wrong for my understanding what is quite risky, or will be quite risky for brand leaders too. But if it happens, it's a risk for our brand. And then we have this problem of not on the top of our presentations, but in the background, of thinking in quality, of making clear that this branch is built upon quality, on relevance of methods, validity of methods, on, let me call it, right data or best possible data. And what I heard and what was answered me in a discussion some weeks ago was the following. There was a statement that said, we as a branch, we have to give an advice. We have to be bold, even if the data quality is poor and the data quality is not good enough, but we have to do because we are asked to give an advice. That is risky. That is, again, the A and O of our branch, to give advices. Of course, we have to give, otherwise there is no impact, but to give it without background, without quality. So all these developments can strengthen our brand. Maybe we have a chance to discuss that later on or next minutes, but there are without any doubt risks. So a SWOT analysis of our branch is really a quite interesting thing at the moment.
Yes, I think SWOT analysis would be very interesting. Yes, maybe we can do also that when we have the time. And like when you say you can, or the amount of data, the big data and the A/B tests, as an example, were actually good in answering the what question. Basically, the why question is kind of falling behind, or is it just so complex that it's so tempting to just use all of the big data and kind of leave the why question out of the question, or do you think it's still there and trying to answer the why question, or should it always be there as a, let's call it maybe a holistic approach for us market researchers, or is it only something we forget? What do you think about the...
To answer the why question is a little bit more complicated than the other thing. So normally you need more than 4 hours, whereas you have already offers answers in 4 hours on a do-it-yourself platform or so. Why means you have to go into psychology and go social psychology. You have to understand motivations, or make it easier to have. You have to understand human beings in general, and in special situations and with special demands and so on. And that needs other methods than normally asking 2 questions or have the answers on 2 questions or behavior data, for example, location data or so. So it is not a miracle. We as a branch answered why questions since 60 years.
Of course.
But for a lot of years, in the 90s or so, it was no doubt that the basis of the main point of our USP as a branch is this why question, answering with impact, not just as a scientific game or whatever, but with the aim to give impact to a client, of course. And that is reduced by AB, by data, by all these things that can be done automatically.
So is that then also the chance, like for us, for our industry as market researchers, to define ourselves in a new way? Or where do you see the chance of our industry to combine all of it, or not to forget what's important?
I think it's only partly as in a new way. One point is quite old, and we were not very successful to make clear that our differentiating USP as a branch is an understanding of 2 to 3 areas, at least 2, and we hope 3. One is we are able to understand human beings in behavior and attitudes. If we do not have the right people to do that, our branch is out. Plus, we are understanding data. That means the quality of data. Which data are the right one to answer what kind of questions? And the third one should be, maybe it's not always, but it should be, we are understanding brands, we are understanding markets, so the business of our clients. That is not that new, but we have to make clear no other industry is offering this combination. But if the combination is not asked for, if understanding human beings is not as important because behavioral data are giving all information, then we are under risk. The second is, it took 20 years up to that moment we understood, or 40 years, I have to say, up to the century change, that our branch understood that we have to understand people and so on, but we have to make good presentations in new wording. We have to find narratives to understand, to present the results. We have to do it with storytelling. And now we are understanding more and more that even that is not enough. Understanding at the beginning, narratives and storytelling of the results as a second step. And now it's getting more and more important, based on that, to activate or to help our clients to activate or to start activities to bring this understanding into action. And that could bring hopefully impact. And frankly speaking, if a client at the end of a job will answer our question, does our market research we did for you, or you paid for, does it have an impact on you, on your site, on your activities and so on, yes or no? And the answer is no. And the answer is quite often no, then we will be out. And a quite new thing is, let me allow that at a third point, a quite new thing, or I think we should strengthen this, because holistic is under risk, that results very often have effects not only in that area we asked for to do research and so on, but even in other areas. For example, if you have results out of UX or CX, experience with a product, with a service in detail, of course, that has to have consequences for your communication, for content, for kind of communication, and so on. And that is only one example of a lot of examples I could find from UX into innovation processes and so on. And this is an add-on, quite often add-on on data we are delivering to one department on client side that other departments on client side could effect from that and we should push it.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, thank you. And it's always complex to kind of rephrase or repeat what you said, but I do remember the understanding part, people and humans and data and brands, and finding narratives and leaving or going beyond just the descriptive data is very, very important, and the holistic idea. So when you say holistic, we should keep that in mind. Is that also something where you would say a market research company could stand out or like become better and better in these days? Like what would you say as experts in market research? How could we stand out or make things better, evolve?
Yeah, let me start with where I think we can't, because quite often, and it was also in presentations of winners of some awards last month and so on, and they were asked, what is the reason for being a winner of, and what did you excellent, and so on and so on. And the answer was quite often in an area that is, from my understanding, already and will be in next future a kind of hygiene factor. That is speed. Everyone has to be as fast as possible. That means sometimes indeed 4 hours, and sometimes it means still 3 months. It depends on what you have to do. But speed is a necessity, and that means a hygiene factor. Same is with, let's say, fair prices, sometimes even lower prices, because there are offers quite cheap, especially in that area of do-it-yourself, and you have to have in mind, and you can't put it out. Automation where possible, no doubt. If you could use it and you don't, you are not offering what clients are expecting. Being agile and flexible, that means being able to change a process, stop it, to deep dive, whatever it is, will be hygiene. Everyone is expecting, and having experts for data analysis, let's say data scientists, whatever it means in detail, is hygiene. So what is special? What's not hygiene? I think it's not so clear. It is at first, as one company, you must have a USP. You must have an offer that is different to that of all others or most of the others. iSquare, not because this is an iSquare meeting today, but iSquare, of course, is one of these companies. That was the idea of the foundation. I was nearby, as you mentioned, and that is one example out of dozens of examples in our branch. You have a special offer. And the other things are that I mentioned. You must try to, let's say it another way, perception and a lot of other things are more and more depending on situations. Demands are quite strong, different between situations, from a second to another, maybe. So if you are measuring, you must be as biotic as possible to, let's say, or you have to do real-time research, ethnographical research, or whatever, observations. And I think that could be in good areas, this combination of real-time, biotic, and not A/B testing and nothing more, but holistic, not always holistic, 1 hour 20 times, but to have an overview of what a person, of what is relevant for a person in a situation that person has to do or is doing something. Is doing means passive, has to do or means quite often active. So, and this understanding needs what I just mentioned, biotic, real-time, and all these things. And if you can't do it one-to-one in a real-time situation, you have to try to come as near as possible to it. By the way, a process you are discussing at iSquare since 20 years.
Yeah, definitely.
It was 20-year following steps of coming nearer from a situation in a town hall measurement or in a studio, and now it's more biotic at home with smartphone and so. That's a good example for the way I mentioned. I'm thinking on.
Yes, I agree. Technology definitely helps us a lot to improve there, and to kind of live with the evolution of technology. But the biotic part is a very, very interesting point. And so on the supplier side, I understand we do need all to fulfill these hygiene factors, like we said, like speed and automation, also agility, maybe flexibility in a process, bring, of course, the right knowledge of data science. But of course, we're also always connected very closely to our clients and partners. And do you also have maybe a view, not a tip, I don't want to break it down that simple, it's not that easy, but also for the client side, since you also have a lot of experience working with so many different clients?
Yeah, that's the problem. You have 10 clients and 10 stories. You have 10 different organizations, sometimes still with silos. Since 15 years, everyone says the area of silos is out, but it's still alive, no doubt. And there are even clients or companies building new silos. Really surprising for me. So you have to mirror more or less as supplier your client side, and if your client is quite separated and has a lot of small teams and responsibilities divided from the other ones, you have no chance then to give them what they want to have. What I'm hoping, and what I have written some articles for over the last, I don't know, 5 to 8 years or so, is to make clearer than it was in the past on client side, that they have to bring together all these very interesting and important informations that are coming from deep dives, from specialization, from small teams and whatever it is, to a general view and general decisions. And so I wrote one article and came to the summary: you should have a chief brand officer, because all these results have an effect on your brand, and brand is the most important asset you have, or your brands, singular or plural. So that means, please, on client side, have in your organization an area which is not somewhere on level 4 or 5, but on top, that is bringing together all the information concerning brand. And the same could be to have a client customer centricity officer, which I wrote 3 years ago or so. That means all information that have to do with what your customers are doing and what that means for your customer centricity, which is standing on all your pages. But standing there doesn't mean that you have a customer centricity organization. So please have it. And that moment, client would have these, let's call it client officers for brand and customer centricity. They will be extremely interested in answering the why question, in having the common understanding of what people are doing. So that means in our business, in your business, in the business of competitors, startups, as well as good old traditional companies. There is enough space for all of us if on client side, the interest on this broad view is alive.
Yeah, also very interesting. And we'll take this with us, and to kind of shift our, let's say, direction of the talk and the interview always to the perception topic and the communication itself. We also wanted to encourage, of course, our guests to think of some questions that they might want to discuss, as well as maybe ask you directly. So please feel free to do that to our participants. And we wanted to have a little bit of a look at communication and behavior and perception. So when you think about, let's call it, it's a little bit abstract, information and behavior in the last years, What do you think? How did it change? Maybe also from a personal view, but from a consumer perspective, but also from what does it mean as well for brands and advertisement? Do you see a change here in the perception era, like we called it?
Of course, there's a change. At first, there's a change of all the data that are available for us. But more important for me is one point to understand decisions of people, and that is what I already mentioned. It is perception, and not perception and situation. I wrote some months ago perception and situation, and in the meantime, I'm aware that it's wrong. It is perception in situation. And so you have to understand or to measure two things: the situation, what kind of situation is it or was it, and then the perception. And yes, perception, I think it was Karina or Michael at the beginning, and I think Karina mentioning it, communication, data, whatever is omnipresent. That's it. Not for all. My mother is 93 years old. That is quite different from what my sons are doing and so on. So we have to have in mind that the object we are working for is not ever the generation X, Y, Z. It is sometimes also ABC, but it is changing. More and more informations are available. Sometimes it's an overflow, not wished and not being able to handle, and that has two interesting effects. One is a very traditional one, because human beings are similar to that they were hundreds of thousands of years ago. They need orientation, they need trust, they need to avoid dissonance and all these things. And getting more and more and more and more information means there is a good chance, or better to say a high risk, that these information are not all in one direction, are not consistent altogether. So you have the problem getting more and more information, even in a special situation, as a solution for a problem you have on the one hand, and you need trust, orientation, and avoidance of dissonance on the other one. And that means you need anchors, a lot of anchors. That is, from my understanding, the reason why influencers are still having such a lot of influence. They are anchors. And that is why I'm again and again and again trying to make clear the relevance of brands, of strong brands, and of science to lead brands in a good way. Coming back to our branch, being holistic, and so on and so on. So the perception situation, and of course, all that means it's a perception situation, as Michael presented before. And what you are now calling system O or zero is that way, was always important, but not that important as it is now, and what makes it relevant for research. To understand what's happening there, it is a first step you have as a brand leader with your communication and so on. The first step and the first point you have to come into, you have seen the picture before, to come into the brain. So what is the change? It's still the wish to have orientation and so on. It's an overflow. It's an overflow of passive as well as active opportunities you have to act. So you need anchors. And on the scientific side, or not side of our branch, you have to understand what's happening, how you can influence it on client side with communication, and that is giving us this change of perception, or this is not a change. It's a stronger relevance of that aspect than it was ever before. Is a task for our branch.
I think that's a great, also like a summary, of course, towards the end of our interview, and the ambivalence or the struggle in the information overflow, the uncertainty, and the search for orientation. I think it's a very good point. Thank you so much for.
Allow me
please,
one point again,
because
I made it in only one sentence. We have to avoid what's happening day by day in all presentations, and it's an orientation on the new and younger consumer groups, X, Y, and so on. And it is this kind of understanding. We have the perception, we have the target group, we have the culture. Of course, we have absolutely no that. And because of all this information overflow, we have more than ever, not only the, but quite the opposite. Up to everyone is an individual.
Right.
So, and that is another task for our branch to bring that together, because clients have to find decisions for a brand, for a communication, for a new product, and not for a new product for one person. So very interesting times for our branch if we are doing things right. That could be a good final word.
But I'll take that as a final word, since Karina already gave me a sign that we should open up for discussion. And of course, first of all, please let me thank you again, Mr. Scheffler, for everything